Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Poetry Salon's Sunday reading. I'm your host, Tresha Faye Haefner, founder of the Poetry Salon. And today we are going to be hearing from Sherre Vernon, who is going to be reading from Translating Blue, her latest collection from Poetos. And also, we are going to be hearing from Susan Rich, who will be reading from Blue Atlas out from Redhead Press. I didn't do this intentionally, but as coincidence would have it, we have two poets who have blue in the title of their collections. Blue happens to be one of my favorite colors, so clearly we have a theme that is unifying us. For those who want to read during our open mic section, you don't have to read a poem that's centered around blue. You don't have to read a poem that's centered around color. But if you have one, and you are struggling to figure out what you want to read, well, try reading a blue or some other color centered poem. I know I'm going to be looking through my stack to see if I've got something that relates. With that said, I will remind everyone that the featured readers, I'd suggest you read for about 20 minutes. I'm not timing it, so go with what feels, comfortable for you. And with the poets who read during the open mic, we pretty much have a rule of one poem per person. I will make exceptions if you have like three haiku that you read. But please don't say, well, it's only two short poems, and then you're reading two poems that are each a page long. We are on the honor system here, but you got to earn it. You got to earn my trust. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to welcome to the stage, the virtual stage, Sherre Vernon. Sherre and I met through the magic of the internet back when everything was going online. And she started out in poetry salon workshops, but I soon realized that she had the background to be facilitating. And so she has been a facilitator at the poetry salon at times. She's led workshops for us. And when I reached out to ask her if she would like to be on the Poetry Salon cast, she had already had another book out through Main Street Rag, but I asked for that, and she said, "Well, I've also got this other book that is coming out through Poetos." And of course the title is Translating Blue. And as I said, blue is one of my favorite colors. So I said, let's talk about the new one. And she was so gracious to talk with me about it on the Poetry Salon cast. If you haven't had a chance to listen to our interview, please make some time for it. It was a lot of fun. And you'll see why when she comes to the stage to share her poetry with us. I'm going to put the spotlight on you, Sherre. In three, two, please welcome Sherre Vernon.
Hey y'all. Tresha, may I share my screen? I can then folks can read along if they like.
You absolutely may. Let's see. I have to.
Yep, I got it.
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you.
Okay. So
Thank you. I find sometimes it's enjoyable to see the text as well as hear it. Maybe that's good for you all, but if not, that's okay. And if I look up, it's because I moved your faces to my secondary screen. Like Tresha said, I'm going to be reading from my forthcoming collection. It should be out in the first half of 2025, and it's called Translating Blue. And here's the first poem, If by Light. If by light, it starts on the 10 West, medias res, medias something, the week, the marriage. And I wonder, well, he asks me if I've still got a handle on the grammar. I know this road, the rock face, a narrow bridge. I've been forgetting it for 20 years. He could be lighting a candle in a corner off Gorky Plaza or speaking me into an open field, another lake in the lesser mountains, a black dirt trail in the mid-morning rain. I cannot bear the lightness of it, how leaves and feathers are the thing. The problems and the promising new vows are palimpsest, like moss in the soft and changing light, attendant, then furious, and some later argument. He's brought me to flight. It's easier to speak of what's orderly and base than this, my non-rational arcana, except inexplicably I prefer it. These words along the small space where that love used to be, a seaside diner, the surf breaking what's left of me whole, and his voice asking when I fell in with the sunlight. Bridges, a refrain. The bridges I want belong to you, mud and burgundy. So I'm building instead in tinctures. I've one of ribbon and one of rosemary. I know the streets are a solvent of vinyl and helix, but the ratio eludes me. The algorithm, so elegant and a little too indignant, I can't quite grasp the tint of it. A man with hair like heartache carries the hood of a car. It is shelter and city and something not dissimilar to silence. Behind him, a woman named Gabe speaks into witches. 1, 2, 3, 7, 5. She's a consolation set to the pace of primes. You settle into a shaft of song. Typeset bottles crumble toward daylight. You've been months at this, untraveling yourself along pine wood petals and the scent of blue. After hiking the coast with my first love and his wife, we've been 3 days touching the tide pools, her body a silhouette of mine, Leo just a little higher in the sky, his paw over Jupiter, our profiles nearly one in the reflected light. Between the citrid-scented needles we've bound to bouquet and the pine nuts wrested from the cone, she holds me in that common space, laughs, how little you've bent your fate in our exchange. A rest on the rocks and our feet sinking into sleek and marbled pebbles. Translucent like them, we glow under a millennium of waves. Watch you watching the horizon. She pushes the curls from my face, grasps my hand against falling, tells me I am for you a bit of grace and healing. With the wind, I say there's nothing left in him of me. With your eyes, she says, he is the wild, uplifted sea. The decades we've come to breach have you layered out like so many old leaves over yourself, faded sketches for the uses of roots, weeds. My Achilles attachment sings this. One moment you are a gray-haired stranger in that song. The next, my young and lonely love. Over the shoals, I try to speak of it, that tenderness, your hand to each of us in turn, feet braced across a puddle, that moment arm in arm after you've caught the final shimmer of sun, reckless and fleeting off the crest of my cheek, your hand securing me to the footholds of the cliff. You will spend an hour rubbing menthol and eucalyptus into this ache. For the short drive to the airport, you wrap me in your gear, and I can think only of your father, speechless with his fear for you, pulling this same hat down over the edges of your ears against winter and rain. It's all there in that small holding, the shared exhale, the pause before turning to the curbside, grasping at the luggage, tipping into our feet. Relocation. When I say I am lonely here, you answer, you chose this when you left. When I left, I chose you, not this. I just didn't know how to say it, what I needed. What I needed to say, I didn't know how. The way blue is so difficult to translate because the translations are blue and difficult to see. Do light and sound travel on the same wave? The sound of traveling is light, you see. You used to tell me things like this, secrets, secreted. Oh, the things you used to tell me like this. Skin to my skin and forgetting without forgiveness. Forgive me. I've forgotten myself and all this skin. And when I say I am lonely here, will you answer? Turn. I've spent this single soul along the banks of bruises, this chlorine drip, this end lane flip, the slap and gasp of suit from shin. And did you know me then? And did you know my soul? You were a fine wire, tangled copper, a chasm, and I sweat on skin, skimming the wake before concrete and green patina. My love, remember, from silt, the moon made room for us, and all my body electrified sunrise, and you could touch me along the lake between us and back then. Take this body. How to explain to someone who's never tracked splits on an analog clock, 50-second intervals and 25, that time moves in shapes, circles like gears spinning over themselves, that you hold no numbers in your head, calculate no math, just move body to beats. So too these ways of loving. You're waiting for the one man, one God narrative as you've been promised and told, all but chanting the Our Father under your breath as you try to catch up with the Walgreens paperback high drama and Too Good Sex folded into a paper house and sacrament, holy kiss. Instead, he remembers to buy the soap you like sometimes, and it doesn't seem worth the hassle to lay out how you lost all track of the chemicals of him, took up communing with a menagerie of saints, each as unlikely as the next, somehow slid along a Kinsey vector, each stop a little less like hope. How you gave up believing that romance and miracles were meant for you, how there were too many pauses and letters and not enough breath. Naming the many ways you split yourself, a bit on the tongue of each one you touched, none of them enough to make something holy out of calendars or agreements. How all you want is to show up and swim him without thinking, without explanation or expectation, to move body by body like gears over each other in silent intervals that just might pass for the litany of prayer. She said 8 things about love. To be a box of watercolors, the disorder of amethyst, and I did for so many years, painting over all the others. You are the Tunis, the web behind my daughter, the mother who gave me a cask of unspillable sinew. Get yourself to a night fox, graceful and holy sleep, a guided observatory. Broken magic like time travel and back to a Roman candle, a wish like sunshine on the street. We will cut my shoulder from time to time, I am ekphrasis. It is the river asking the only thing, what we used to turn stone from clean blue sheets. We carry our child selves, wade the waters of our lives, lay us on the banks of Styx, dowsing. Like dirt, grapes, pears in the morning, it makes me wildflowers. You burn me up. If my neck is a tree and its rings the folding map of my age, then I am glad to wear them like scented bark, your fingers brailing my ridges from chin to sternum. It has been so long since the forest of this body burned. Can you smell my old smoke? Incense, do I taste like ashes, sizzle out like embers under your tongue, oh husband, my late summer love, my right here? How I must remind you, I am the tree of unknowing, of loss. Or perhaps you are the needle and I am the spinning vinyl, your touch a heart skip song. Do you remember the beat and wail of our young bodies, the cacophony of new music, oh husband, my morphine sax, my any place but here? When did I become the perforated paper in a player piano, the raised skin cylinder in an antique music box? There was a time when we vowed to lock ourselves in eternal rings, but this skin is a rain-soaked reed. It will bleed new ink. I have railed these many years against any hold you had over me, from tinder to tinder box. Oh, husband, my kindling flame, my crumbling altar, tell me, please, as burnt offering, even I am not gone. Though I sway, I am trying to remember what it is to become undone. If you leave me, I will parch myself. If you stay, what bloom may rise from this, green and humming, reaching for the sun? This last poem that I'm going to read has an epigraph from Brenda Hellman's first tractate in a book called Death Tractates, which I highly recommend. Roadside acacias, I could not bear them, all unzipped, curved to spoon up the rain. Too much shape. Brenda Hellman, first tractate. Too much shape. I take the coast in the rain, and you're there even when the nights when they end, but that was half a lifetime ago. Me on a greyhound, and you, your hair grown loose, one arm across your chest. I couldn't write anything. Looking at you, I had stretched my love so tight against your frame. I have an ex with less of me than you. There's a shape a soul makes, pressed into another, and your name. I fear I will ask it when all others have left me. Tonight you're on a plane crossing the Atlantic, our 23rd goodbye, our 123rd. Perhaps we have been parting since our pre-cellular days. My body is too far gone to be a part of it, and I can't remember the exactness of your skin, but every word, I know its shape. Thank you. Back to you, Tresha.
All right. That is Sherre Vernon, everyone. And I am going to struggle here for a second while I try to remember how to use technology to put the spotlight back on myself. There we go. Um, Sherre, that is so lovely. And if you all haven't had a chance yet to listen to our interview on the Poetry Salon cast, please do. We talked about the Russian language, the color blue, translation, love, different kinds of love. I did not know this, but in the Greek, the ancient Greek language, there's, I think, 9 different kinds of love: eros, philos, agape, mania. I think a lot of us have had that one before. And I think that was a really fun, worthwhile conversation, and it stirred a lot of poems and poetry ideas for me. So I hope that does that same thing for all the rest of you poets who take a chance to listen. Okay. So once again, thank you, Sherre Vernon. And you can get her book, Translating Blue, from Poetos Press. Next, I want to welcome to our virtual stage Susan Rich. And I actually know Susan first through the book that she co-edited with Kelly Russell Agaddon from Two Sylvia's Press, Demystifying the Manuscript. I'm just going to say this is a really lovely, worthwhile read, even if you don't feel like you're ready for a manuscript or not. It's just great to hear so many different poets talk about the writing process, the manuscript process. And I found it very inspiring, very encouraging, very useful read as someone who's frequently working with manuscripts, my own and those of the poets that I work with. And then, of course, I wanted to know more about Susan Rich and her poetry. And so I was so excited that we got to talk about Blue Atlas. I think I'll let Susan talk about the title and the meaning if she so chooses. We also discuss it again on our interview on the Poetry Salon cast. And it is, I believe, her 6th book. So I'm not going to list all the other books she's written, but of course you can go to her website. You can listen to our podcast to get the list of all of her many books. But I believe Blue Atlas is the most recent, and it is from Red Hen Press. And it was a really moving read on a very, prescient topic. So with that said, I'm going to put the spotlight on you, Susan, in 3, 2. Please welcome Susan Rich.
Hi, thank you so much for that introduction. And can everybody hear me okay? I'm going to hope that you can because I can't see any other faces. Someone will tell me if I'm not projecting enough. But I teach, and so projection is not usually an issue. That was a wonderful reading, and it made me dig through some other poems I have from my book, Gallery of Postcards and Maps, New and Selected Poems with an Introduction by Ilya Kaminsky, which came out from Salmon Press in 2022. So for the last 3 years, I've had a book a year, which is a very odd thing because it had been 9 years of no books before that. I'm going to start by reading a poem where blue is the feature. Strangely enough, in Blue Atlas is a cedar tree that originated in Morocco. It is the sturdiest of all the cedars, and it's also no stranger to the Pacific Northwest where I live. So that's part of where Blue Atlas got its title. I don't know that there's a whole lot of blue in the poems. So I'm going to start with a poem called What She Leaves Unspoken, which, as I've said, is from Gallery of Postcards and Maps. And um, just hearing Sherre read, I looked this up. It has lots of layers of blue, lots of meanings of blue. I don't think I need to lecture you about. You know, blue has multiple meanings. I will just say that the Tuareg nomads who are in West Africa and also North Africa are also called the Blue Men, and they wear robes and scarves of this just deep, rich, beautiful blue. So you will hear the word Tuareg, and I wanted you to be able to. It's not quite navy, it's not quite indigo, it's somewhere in the middle there. And then the only other thing that might be strange, and strange isn't necessarily bad, I hope, is Mary's Bosnian blue. And during the Bosnian War, I worked in Bosnia. And there was one particular Church of Mary that was never bombed, that had no, what am I trying to say? It wasn't harmed in any way. And there are 7 children that were there that all had heard Mary's word. And after the war was over, it became clear that it was a negotiation. It wasn't godly interference that kept that church safe. It was a kind of, you won't bomb this and we won't bomb that. More information than you needed. What she leaves unspoken. When she is blue, she is not kingfisher, jacaranda, you. She is not river tide or drum roll, not a periwinkle bolt of fabric, a French matchstick gone unused, but the grime on beveled glass, the battered cup, the small hole in a left shoe. She cannot move one dormant arm above the hydrangea of her mind. No kitchen clock, no metronome measures this conscripted time, this Tuareg scarf of blue. She is a knot, a ridge, an open wound, a clue without an answer. No country tune, no catalogue of saints can bring her out across the way. No, she is not ear, nor unstitched wrist, nor Mary's Bosnian brood. When she is blue, she is not you, but an absent text, an unreliable X. So I'm also going to ask Tresha if you can let me screen share. That was so wonderful to see poems, and I won't be able to do it with all of them, but I will be able to do it with some of them. And it looks like I already have the power of sharing, I hope. Can you see extreme close up? Can somebody give me a thumbs
Yes,
up?
we can see it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Extreme Close Up is a poem that is also in Gallery of Postcards and Maps. It came out during COVID. It really didn't get much play, but this poem I've been thinking about this morning. I just posted it. Might be interesting to know. It's a prompt that I and my friend Elizabeth Austin would give each other. She gave me this prompt from a poem by Terence Hayes in his book, American Sonnets from My Past and Future Assassin, which I'm afraid is going to be way too timely right now. He has a poem about James Baldwin's face. And so the prompt that I offer to all of you is, can you write a sonnet focused on one face? And, you can see I kind of moved on to the ears, which is kind of a little bit of a cheat, I suppose. But it's a little hard to do 14 lines on a face unless it's a face you know really well. Extreme close-up. All the things I love about his face come from movement. The fishtail lines sketched just above the edges of his cheekbones. A tadpole of a mustache, which appears, then disappears, inked along the philtrum, trimmed to obscure the future. And yes, my father's ears do resemble oyster shells, sculptures adorned with an outcropping of hair. Praise be to his widow's peak, unfurrowed and furrowed like a sail for survival, to his mouth now open, ready for a lobster tail or a caniche. And somewhere, perhaps burnishing his jaw or dimpled chin, his father's early death and the knowledge of his own. I scan the code in his crescent-shaped eyes, my eyes, DNA spiraling along a connected shoreline, the taking and giving back of deep waters, his wonderment hooked to sorrow. And I think that's one of the magic alchemical things that poetry can do. My dad has been gone 30 years, about 30 years. And yet when I read this poem, he comes back to me. So thank you for that little bit of indulgence. I'm also going to see if I can click. Did that happen for you? Do you now see double exposure? Great.
Yep.
So nice to know technology works. I usually start with this poem when I'm doing readings, but I'm also somewhat dyslexic, so things don't always happen in the right order. And I read this poem because we are involved in a war in Gaza. We pay for that war. But I worked in Gaza at a time of peace, and it was one of the best international trips I'd ever had. I was brought in through Amnesty International to work with Amnesty International Palestine. And that's probably helpful to know why I'm there. I'm there to teach human rights education. Double exposure. Get in, Omar motions, and that's how it happens. The last tendril of hope caught in the door slam, the comet of exhaust, the kilometers expanding as Samir flies along Gaza's last highway. No watermelon vendors, no farmers, no women for me to signal and say, Salam alaikum, shukran. In the front seat, two men in the darkest of sunglasses laugh and argue in Arabic, and it's depressingly clear they're discussing me. I consider the road's dirt shoulder, velocity divided by speed, my body ribboned to red. And how awkward if I could even open the door, if I found my will frozen, my courage asleep. An old sentence beats its rhythm in my ear. They want to throw us into the sea, into the sea. The story I learned from my grandmother's neighbor. I was 7 and she an Auschwitz survivor. And then there is silence. It's all been decided. To the east of us, a kind of dreamscape fades in, like a foreign film's slow establishing shot. Sand the color of clouds, turquoise surf, filtered light. And we pull up in a mall-sized parking lot. Tell your friends next year we will build foreign hotels, restaurants, discotheques, room for your dog pets. I nod and smile. Dog hotels, yes. We take off our shoes. The men point. Suzanne, take a picture of me, of me. Which will you marry? I shoot them on the shoreline, shoot their backs against the postcard sea, their arms clasped around each other, young men again, laughing. I'm going to switch back to my screen because I didn't plan well enough to do all of the poems. And I always like to shake it up in terms of how I feel the audience is feeling or how I'm feeling. So I think I'll start now with Blue Atlas, which is my most recent book. And what shall I say about it? It coheres, I hope it coheres, around a coerced midterm abortion. But there's also a lot of other things happening in the book. And I might work a little bit more with those other things today. And as much as possible, I'll try to tell you where the poems came from in case they sound like decent prompts for you. Boketo, I think the poem will tell you what that word means. It's a Japanese word, but the poem itself came from borrowing the end lines of another poem, and not all of the end lines, but just some of them. And again, this was by again my friend the poet Elizabeth Austin. Years ago we did this, and I believe the poem was by Tim Siebels, but we didn't take every line. We took a few and got something very different. Boketo. Outside my window, it's never the same. Some mornings, jasmine slaps the house. Some mornings, sorrow. There is a word I overheard today, meaning lost. Not on a career path or across a floating bridge. Boketo, to stare out windows without purpose. Don't laugh. It's been too long since I leaned into the morning, bird-friendly coffee and blueberry toast. A while since I declared myself a prophet of lost cats, blind lover of animal fur and feral appetites. Someone should hashtag a word for the ashes of an almost marriage, knowledge that the heat might not hold or our lights remain on, a second sight that drives the particulars of a life, sea glass and salt, cherry blossoms and persistent weeds. What assembles in the middle distance? Beyond the mail truck, have I overlooked oceans, ignored crows? I try to exist in the somehow, the might still be, gaze upward to constellations of the in-between. We got blueberries in there, so we did get that, or bluebirds, right? Bird-friendly coffee and blueberry toast. After this poem came out, somebody who owned a company that made bird-friendly coffee contacted me and sent me some coffee, but in return, he wanted a lot of critique of his poems. It was kind of funny. In retrospect, it was kind of funny. Okay, so I'm going to choose poems that I think might be a little bit more joyful than some of the poems in this book. And that's a trick because the book, like I said, is a lot about abortion. And maybe I'll end with one of the many abortion poems in here. But today I'm going to try to do things that are not quite so, I don't know, not quite so abortion focused. In praise of anger. It has taken so long to find you, years of squirreling your shadow back under the bed. And now you are here beside me, head on the pillow, no longer denied. I spit, sing, state my case, and the roof does not fly off. The cellar door remains well hinged. Anger arcs into prisms like a starlight scope on a cool summer night. Suddenly, I throw the oak tree at it with ease, flip each ex-lover, the entire neighborhood, the man who next door who shoots the sunrise, the tree cutter, the cat killer. I take my anger out of the box and tap it like a prayer wheel, run its messages along the rim of the world without regret. Love it like a child's spinning top. Yeah, different kind of reading. Single, taken, not interested is the title of this. And this came from a t-shirt available online. I was searching for a title, and my friend Kelly Russell Agaddon found this one for me. And we didn't buy the t-shirt, but it does become the title of this poem. It has a check mark at the end of it. Single, taken, not interested, check. This year, I have ascended to rock star status, inductee into the Hall of Fame. I've achieved Olympic gold for sleeping solo in a single bed, a bank of pillows saved just for me. At dawn, I grind my coffee beans just so. No one's honking snores bother me. Pecan toast and a bowl of Cheerios, a torn t-shirt, and wrinkle cream. This is how it's done. Every day deranged into a holiday. The judge banished from his chambers, the accountant no longer itemizing my indiscretions. I caress madrona trees and binge on an Italian detective series, unbridled laughter. I buy twice-baked biscuits, dip them in marmalade and clotted cream. The clocks click along contentedly, each one set for a different time. I've watercolors to create, a shoreline to walk, a trip around the world to take on my own. My friend, divorced after 40 years, confides that while in her marriage, she could not name her favorite color or which song she preferred to sing. Another friend confesses she's never embraced even one night stuck on my own. I appoint myself the high priestess of the newly single, write sermons on how to stretch ecstatically into the first person singular, the proud I that does not apologize, the I that no one holds by the throat. I think maybe two more. It's a little bit of a schizophrenic reading. I hope that's okay with you. I'm going back and forth in different things. Some of this is kind of reading poems that I haven't read in a while, and some of it is reading poems that are kind of favorites. That's what I'm digging for now. And some of you have heard this poem before. I read this at OPN and we talked about it, but then you know it's a favorite. And Tresha and I are talked about Elizabeth Bishop, and this is a poem that comes from a little fact that I found somewhere, that Elizabeth Bishop always kept a compass in her front jacket pocket. And although I have loved Elizabeth Bishop's work, I think I'm a poet because of finding her work, I could never write anything about her. I had many failed attempts. And that little fact, that one little fact, opened something for me. So if you have a subject that you're trying to write about and it's just not coming, see if maybe an odd fact might help you. Compass. Elizabeth Bishop often kept a compass in her small jacket pocket. A little known fact about the poet who fell regularly from a delicate map of sobriety, lost her keys entire weeks, even countries. Could a compass, initially used in fortune telling, invented in the Han Dynasty, buoy her with its divining arrow, its quivering and irregular heartbeat? What are the coordinates of the soul? Mist-filled or incandescent, briny as ocean air or rugged as oro preto. Bishop could lose herself in the architecture of a birdcage, the clack of wooden clogs. But with binoculars strung round her neck like miniature islands, a compass in her hand, her brokenness could orient her. Her brokenness could console her like a harbor chart or a naked pink dog. I think I'll end with parts of a longer poem called Post-Abortion Questionnaire, powered by SurveyMonkey, which we also talked about in this interview. And it, again, a difficult subject. I suppose that's why we write. We're writing about difficult things quite a bit. And I couldn't write about the abortion that I had in my 20s. I had all this other stuff that seemed maybe like a book. Blue Atlas took me 10 years to write. Other books came and went during those 10 years. And this poem is called Post-Abortion Questionnaire, powered by SurveyMonkey. And that's because that's where it came from. You can look it up online. And as I said in the interview, you can find questionnaires online for just about any topic. Should I buy a snake? People who love to make love with people dressed in stuffed animals, love poems, lists of your favorite love poems, lists of whether you should go to church, whether you should not go to church. I could keep going. I'm not doing as great a rant as I did before, but these questions came from this post-abortion questionnaire. And the idea for this poem came from the wonderful poet Oliver de la Paz, who has an autism questionnaire, which you can find online, and is just a beautiful poem. Post-abortion questionnaire, powered by SurveyMonkey. Do you feel reluctant to talk about the subject of abortion? In the center of the ceiling, a marigold weeps, or perhaps it's an old chandelier. Look, inside there is another worldly glow, shards illuminated in violet pink and layers of peeling gold leaf. Such minds at night unfold. Have you found yourself either avoiding relationships or becoming overly dependent on them since the abortion? If I could unhinge myself from myself, attach to bookshelves, sever my tongue, I would watch as it grew back, rejuvenated and ready to speak. Do you have lingering feelings of resentment towards people involved in your abortion, perhaps the baby's father or your parents? One must be careful what one takes when one turns away forever. A Tuareg scarf, 2 photographs, untamed thoughts that curse, then lift. Occasionally, yes, but mostly not. Do you tend to think of your life in terms of before and after the abortion? Too scared to speak my name, not etherized upon a table, I wore silver stirrups, blue wraparound globe. The young nurse and I held hands. You're doing great, she cooed. I remained awake, awakened. Have you felt a vague sort of emptiness, a deep sense of loss, or had prolonged periods of depression? The sky no longer speaks to me directly, and the beautiful man, he has dropped through the floorboards, though sometimes he answers emails. Thank you. Our family has survived the Paris bombings. Sincere condolences on your new president. Have you begun or increased use of drugs or alcohol since the abortion? Do you have an eating disorder? First, the fog tastes sweet, then sour. What is identity but forged glamour? Strong doses of celibacy taken regularly. Did your relationship to God or karma or fate change after the abortion? If my own voice falters, tell them I tried not to live inside the clock or under the skin of pomegranates. Does anyone escape her own story? Head-on collision, northeaster earthquake, the racist seeding of our own country. Are you bothered by certain sounds like machinery that makes loud noises? Coffee grinder, dust buster, Singer sewing machine. Also truck backfire, sparkler, the sharp scrape of chair legs, gunfire overhead, hand saws, the evening news. Aren't you? Is there anything else you would like to ask? Why does Google Maps allow blind spots? For example, the city of Zinder, Niger. Is it possible for one person to photograph each galaxy, to understand this bewilderment of light? I think I'm going to end there. Thank you so much.
That is so lovely. Susan Rich, everyone, reading from several of her books, most recently Blue Atlas, um, and Replacing the Spotlight. So thank you to both of our features, Susan and Sherry. I'll confess part of the reason I keep my video turned off is one, we have some distractions in the house, and then the other reason is I really love to listen to poetry actively, which means sometimes I'm scribbling lines of poems as we read, and this way, I often think of lines I might use to start a poem of my own or just lines I might want to learn from and copy. And Susan and Sherry, you've both provided some really beautiful imagery and language. So thank you for that. And Susan, I especially appreciate how you offered us some mini prompts. So those of you who are poets or poetry teachers, of course, we have some bonus prompts to walk away with. The way that, see, I told you there were distractions in the house, and that's one of them. The way that we'll do our open mic is a little different from the way we've done it in the past. I'm just going to ask that if you want to be on the open mic, please use the reaction button down at the bottom of the screen to raise your hand. Yeah, raise your hand like this, and I will just go through everyone and call on the folks who have raised their hand. And then afterwards, I will ask if I missed anyone. So I really want everyone who wants to read to read. I will do the best that I can to make sure we all can do that. If anyone needs to take a moment to figure out which poem you want to read, then do so now. I'm going to be our sacrificial poet for the open mic and read a poem of my own. And again, this first part is the recorded version. So if you want to read a poem for the recorded version, keep your hand up. And if you don't want to be recorded, we'll have an unrecorded version afterwards. Okay. Susan's last poem, I love how it ended on what are we asking Google? And so I thought, well, that leads into a poem I wrote that's in my book, When the Moon Had Antlers, from Pine Row Press, wonderful publisher. And this is called Questions for a Search Engine. So taking a note from Susan here, this is Questions for a Search Engine. If only you could sing me a star song like the bards used to do. Layers of history sediment over, languages lose themselves. Under the man made lake, something lurks. If only you could predict the past like a soothsayer, break open like oracle bones. On this side of the tea leaves, the flowers keep falling. Tell me what animal my grandmother has become now she blossoms celestial side. I dream forests walking towards us. What do these images signify? Tell me why the cavemen printed their hands on walls. What were they trying to say? Tell me how this star song ends. Tell me what was written on the backs of their eyes. Okay, and now I'll lower my hand and I'm searching. I am going to call to the stage Thomas Thomas, and then on deck after Thomas Thomas is Jim Lewis. Thomas Thomas, let me give you the spotlight. Here you go.
Ah, well, you inspired me to read a poem with lots of blue in it. It was published in McQuinterly in September. It's called While Hearing the Poet, and it's after Aaron Abeta. While hearing the poet, reading love poems wherein he answers questions asked by his wife about the length and breadth and depth of his love for her, who could I think of but my own beloved? There was that moment, that distant blue that shone through centuries and more, blue even older in your eyes, blue reflected millennia ago off the Euphrates, the blue Nile, the whole blue Pacific Ocean, when I knew I had loved you before there were Octobers and Augusts, before monuments made to the moon and stars, which were ours even before calendars were marked on stones or bones, those thousands of years, before anyone had left Africa for Asia, before anyone knew the blue of the Aegean Sea and its blueness and stars were etched on stone and painted on walls. I loved you sacred before temple, synagogue, or church, when love was blue water in a green cathedral under a new blue sky, and the water fell from cliff stone into sun-sparkled air, became the dazzled light of water falling as I am still, so dazzled as earth draws me falling incandescent for you now, as through all those centuries, now as then, as always, I love you, as the blue water bends to touch the shore, as we touched our shores under moons and stars, as we loved again and again, all this time since touch began.
Absolutely lovely, Thomas. Thank you so much. Um, on deck will be Karen, Greenbaum-Maya, but for now, please welcome to the stage Jim Lewis.
Thank you. Every year on my birthday, I offer a gift to whoever will accept it, and that is to write a poem based on a prompt that they give me. The first one that I got this year read like this: I'm having a tough time because of some health issues that are age-related and difficult to accept. My retirement, I fear, will not be as idyllic as I had planned. And I took that prompt and wrote this poem. Eden doesn't look like the brochure, except for the fruit trees which have somehow survived, and the snakes, one around every corner it seems. There was supposed to be a fountain whose water would keep me young, joints limber and strong enough to carry me on forever. Instead, here I am, waking to pain, heart and body bruised, broken, stomping through the underbrush, wondering when I'll get to rest. But listen, a voice that whispers softly but so sweetly, carry on. A voice I know from long ago, my guardian angel's voice. I drop the brochure in the nearest trash, step into the sun, arms ready to battle whatever is yet to come. An army of friends right there beside me. Eden, indeed.
All right, Jim, thank you so much. Yes, people are putting in the chat that we might have to steal that idea for prompts of our own. That's quite wonderful. Thank you. On deck will be Elizabeth Kandell. And before Elizabeth, please welcome to the stage Karen Greenbaum-Maya.
I'm going to be the first one to push that boundary. I have a very short one and a pretty short one. What do you want to do?
I trust you. I trust your judgment.
Thank you. Okay. Here we go. First one is a prose poem called Eve the Inventor. When Eve bites into the apple, she invents time. She crunches her mouthful, tastes the juice released from the crushed chambers. She swallows. Now it is gone. Now there is a now, becoming then. Now the apple starts to enter the past. The next bite is a little less crisp. We are told that Eve invented death and labor. Do not forget that she also invented loss and music. Birds sing for the first time when their song begins and ends. Grasses bend in the new little wind and the sun starts to drift to the horizon. The serpent is astonished to feel the desire to shed his skin. Eve discovers her apple's green woody stem that doesn't even know its useful life is over. She has not yet discovered that no good deed goes unpunished. Okay, this next one is a found poem of titles I found in a used bookstore the morning after the election. Lincoln's Legacy, Silent to the Bone, Wolf Hall, H is for Hawk, The King Must Die, The Hanging Artist, Golden Age, The Man in the High Castle, A River Runs Through It, The Chosen, Extreme Do-It-Yourself, Blackout.
Karen Greenbaum-Maya, good to hear your voice again. Kika will be on deck. And before Kika, please welcome to the stage Elizabeth Kandell. Please tell me if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah, Kandell.
Thank you.
I'm going to read a poem that was published in Literary Mama. It's called I Notice Perhaps a Small Dot at Bedtime. His eyelash line a bit darker in shadow. It is hard to tell, and it is bedtime. So let him sleep, I think. But in morning light, I see it is a tick. All summer fighting them at every diaper change and bath. And now I say, hold still, sweetie. Close your eyes. Take my sterile tweezer precise to the edge of its bite and pinch. My little boy blinks. His clear brown eyes say, you are good at that.
Fantastic, Elizabeth Kandell.
Kandell.
Kandell. I can remember that. Kandell. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
coming to the stage is Kika, Dorsey, and on deck. Does anyone else have their hand up that I'm missing? So Kika. Oh, yes. Okay, good. I see. I had a bunch of people were out of view. Okay. Coming to the stage, next is Kika Dorsey, and on deck is Dick Westheimer. But for now, I'm putting the spotlight on you, Kika.
Right. I actually hate Ars Poetica. Like I hate writing about writing, but this poem I wrote, and it's going to be published with anti heroin chic. So I'm going to read it. And, I kind of like it. It's called poetry. So tilled land at my feet, sowing seed, writing with eyelashes dipped in moonlight, their curve my closed mouth. I've closed my eyes for you. I've gathered phosphines and a hermit's cane as he traversed a barren mountain, all my writing a palette of empty and hard silver stone, or land brimming with grain, my pain punctuating what can heal it. So if you ask if writing is therapeutic, and I say it depends on what ending I choose or what you believe the hermit learned or how his limp revised his vision of mortality. To be a writer is to garnish an ache of the blossom and how it breaks to rise and open to a temporary light. To be a writer is to dissect that very ache and build a muscle over the cold, hard bone. It could be a better world, the writer believes. A feast under the shadow of silk tarps, the worm freed, the lark of you singing when the morning is dark, when all you can see is the way of the corn husk, how you peel it, or the landscape where the hermit sets his cane down and etches with it a rune, an oracle sung with your pen, however dissonant or out of tune, however delicate as the eyelashes that protect your vision, and a mouth that utters beneath the breath. It is too hard to say goodbye. There is always more to say.
Fabulous, Kika. Thank you so much. Uh, T. Poulson will be on deck. Please, right now, welcome to the stage, Dick Westheimer.
Hey all, I'm sorry I got to the reading a little late, but just so happy to have gotten here, and I will continue in my pattern of reading the latest poem off my desktop. Fortunately, one not related to the election, my first one. So, first one in a couple weeks. This is called Tidying After Years of Neglect. I still have boxes of screws I bought back in '76, flathead slots that the screwdriver pop out of, stripping the notch and slipping off into the back of my hand. There's a bin of wire braids I pinch between finger and thumb, and a scar where one pricked under my nail all the way to the root. I'd bought these from the guy who sold them from his garage up on Route 222, a penny a pound. These are uncomplicated things, silent, self-assured, and I know I'll need them someday, so I keep moving them around when I'm looking for something else. At night, when I can't sleep, I see these, the screws in their frayed red cardboard box, the brads in their bin, the 16-penny nails I've forsaken for hex head lags. And I'm afraid if I throw them out, my memory will fade of the garage sale man, whose name I forget, of the feel of the hammer swung by my young sinewed arm, of my palms calloused and scarred, of the day we met. You with your long brown braid, you wearing that blue gingham dress, me longing for a mate with a long brown braid wearing a blue gingham dress, one who's pining for a man with working man's hands.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Cynthia is on deck. And right now, please welcome to the stage T. Poulson.
Hi, everyone. I want to share my latest published poem that just came out this past week. People who know me say it would laugh at this because it's my first poem ever published. The title is a number, and everybody knows I hate numbers, so that's sort of ironic. It was published by the American Literary Review. After I read, I'll put it in the chat. So if you like the poem, you can go there and you can get to other great poems that are in there from mine, and all great journals need love. So I hope you do it. 573992, Confession of a UPS Driver. Bear Gulch Road, an asphalt sliver winds among redwoods whose branches chop, clutter, sunlight to me where needles fall to define my paths, my work. My truck, 573992, butters her turns and nimbles me. Beyond, the framed Pacific glimmers pale among numbers, parcels, stops, production. 992 names me strong in rivers of marine layer drunk from salt. Fog bleeds and swirls in gray flames. Wonder twists to me among trunks as wide as roads. Pastures' green secrets unfold in wilder shades with her, my truck, as mist conceals the deep in folds of wet and gold shadows. They say tools maketh the woman, and I can take the burning sunsets of knots in flesh. With 992, can take the punch of overtime. Nothing lasts. Her design phased out, erased by handshakes among men and women who've never asked. A vehicle to hold them safe where dark slopes down. Her odometer says she's past her prime. If one repair bill ever arcs over $1,000, the graveyard, brown with rust, awaits. I dread the damp, the dark of skyline without her. My turnaround's unbuttered, clumsy. Any other wheels will winder the Pacific just a wound of blue. The redwoods just pillars. I reveal her little bruises one by one. A seal glistens wet. A bearing growls. She whines.
T, amazing as always. Thank you for being here. Julene will be on deck. Next on up, please welcome Cynthia Pratt.
So I'm going to read another blue poem, and this one has been won third place in the Sad Girl Diaries Summer Poetry Contest. My sister's life sinks on the day of the Titanic's anniversary. The hue of her wooden frame turns cerulean after her husband left. Blue now covers the heart's jagged rock limbs. She becomes a skiff that skims dark midnight but never returns home. Periwinkle wraps the sail, although she will still stay as sad as blue crags. Sink into the sapphire ocean until she grabs a blue tang fish to see if she will drown with it. And she does gasp, choking on aquamarine loneliness. Never mind that the man now gone is silent as the inside of a shadow. I tried to tell her to forget this glaucous man, but she sends the debris of herself to scatter amongst the blackened escarpments. Thank you.
Lovely to hear your work, Cynthia. And next on up is Julene.
Hello. What a lovely reading. I was going to read an abortion poem, but when Susan turned to joyful poems, I thought I'd read this one that is in my latest book, Slow Now with Clear Skies, came out this year. It's called Safe Space. There are moments settled when worry dissipates in sync, set, grounded, solid on earth. A sturdy, elongated spine rooted up through my lower back. Then a shock swings in like Tarzan on a long tendril, but not to the rescue. A disruptor with bad news. I flinch, cringe, fold inward. The world tilts. Then the fall, a deep well, cold, damp, clammy skin crawl. A wire tightens in my throat. Stability, a shadow. I must slow down, touch earth, find the smooth stone in my pocket, rub it with my thumb, ask for what I need, something small. Today, when I spilled into despair, lost my center, uncertainty flooded, a part of me knew my cerebral cortex would come back. My toes, fingers, heart, and gut would respond to my plea for calm. Brain fogged, I start with each finger, feel the pen, the fabric against my thigh, my cool cheeks, a hug across my heart. Back doors into this body, to the safe space that begins with tactile presence.
Mm.
Thank you, Julene. Did anyone else want to read for the recorded portion that I haven't yet called on? Okay. Well, at this time, I and my cat will say thank you again to all those who shared their poems, and I'll make a few quick
Great,
plugs.
Tresha. Warren wanted to read.
Oh, Warren, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up. So go ahead, Warren. I'm going to put the spotlight on you, or place spotlight and welcome.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate being spotlighted, especially on a Sunday. Before I get started, I want to say thank you to Tresha, and whoever else is co-hosting with her for having me here. This is indeed my first time at the Poetry Salon, and hope to God it won't be my last time. And I do apologize for missing Sherre and Susan's poetry earlier, but I know you guys did great. With that said, I do have a poem, one poem that I'm going to share in honor of Thanksgiving, which is probably about 10, 11 days away. And this one, if I can pull it up. So this poem that I have is called Thanksgiving to Me. It's one I shared last year for Thanksgiving, and I decided to share it again this year. So here we go. This is called Thanksgiving to Me. What is Thanksgiving to me? Well, in life, you'll hear people tell you to count your blessings. I count mine, and it goes a little something like 1, 2, thank you, Lord, for all you do. 3, 4, your presence comforts me even more. But for real, what is Thanksgiving to me? Is it a nourishment for the soul that I'm the captain of? Or if I master this, do I take it for granted like the turkey that folks overseas wish they had? God forbid. It's when the words thank you sail from my mouth to the destination of individuality, reality looking out at me from the front of my windshield, hoping I don't stop at another red light because that's the color that adds flavor to what tastes best, which is gratitude. That sweetness of knowing just how grateful I am for my family, whom I love more than pumpkin pie. Then, once I'm through with that dessert, I end up putting my dish in the sink so I can wash out those who are ungrateful. Think about those who are less fortunate. the homeless, the impoverished, and the hungry. So when you ask me what Thanksgiving is to me, I'll just say it's more than a tradition. It's more than a decision. It's about the recognition of the blessings that I've been given. I'm no mathematician, but Thanksgiving doesn't mean division, but I need your full attention so I can lay out my definition. It's the condition of precision where my mind is put in position to be wishing for a vision that is brought to fruition, a vision where student loan debt can finally be forgiven and college folks with submissions can earn free tuition. It involves no politician. It's far from being a religion. It's not about me in the kitchen trying to get a good nutrition. It's all about the rendition of thanking God for the ambition to accomplish the mission with Him as your supervision. In addition, our hearts are about as broken as the system where people of opposition have admission to this prison, the prison of competition where everyone thinks they're winning when there are people who are starving in other countries like Great Britain. Instead of us pretending like all of this is fiction, we need to know the facts, not just go up our opinions. I hope I gave a description of my Thanksgiving benediction, and that's coming from this guy who is grateful to be a Christian. Thank you.
All right, nicely put, Warren. And you can see in the chat that people are putting their favorite lines in there. I mean, back in the day when we all met in person, if people really liked, your poems that and a particular line, we'd be able to like make noises or we'd give hand gestures. Here on Zoom, if you like a line that someone has, you put it in the chat, what your response is to that. So, we're evolving that way. So thank you. And I appreciate you being here, and you are always welcome back. And with that said, I will make a few little announcements. If you are not yet a subscriber to the Poetry Salon on Substack, please become one. I'm putting the link in the chat. For those of you who read today, you definitely want to become subscribers because that's where you'll see this recorded reading. And if you want to send me an email with or if you want to put in our Substack the link to where your poem is published so people can read it and see, there is a difference between hearing a poem and getting to read it. So if you are on Substack, you can always interact with us and give us the additional information, which we all appreciate so much. And you can also comment on each other's poems. It is really about becoming a community and not just showing up once a month for a reading, but also getting to, make friends with each other and continue following each other's work, which it turns out to be such a really wonderful part of what this poetry community is. Let's see, that's that. And also, I know right now is a very difficult time for people and folks need a place to express themselves. So, we are offering some memberships to the Poetry Salon on donation basis. If anyone feels like they need a place to write but can't afford membership, please reach out to me, or you'll see in our Substack the link to where you can get a membership for a month on a donation basis. Because again, that is what we're here to do is hold each other up and lift each other up and hold space for one another as we write and share and get through this. With that said, I'm going to end the recording in just a second, but I will end with my favorite quote from Kurt Vonnegut, which is, we are here to help each other through this, whatever this is. I don't know what this is, but we are here to help each other through it. And please reach out if you need a little more help through it. And if you need some help through poetry, we're here, thepoetrysalon.com.